Hello, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming out today. We're here for a very exciting bill signing. We are going to be commemorating two critically important bills that will move the ball forward in a meaningful way for people with disabilities in the state of Connecticut. House Bill 5200 and Senate Bill 308, the Wheelchair Task Force. And I'm going to speak just very briefly about Senate Bill 308 because this is a real bipartisan collaboration that is going to pass the strongest protections for people who are wheelchair users in the country. Connecticut will be leading the country and making sure that we're providing protections. And it couldn't be more important. We had a task force looking at this issue, and I want to give a real shout out to the people who did the hard work. Some incredible advocates, some of whom you're going to hear from today, but also Beverly Brakeman, who chaired the task force, Chandra. Thank you, Beverly. Chandra Prasad, our amazing clerk, who could not be here, but who really helped run the whole thing, and some advocates who shared their stories about having to wait, in some cases, over 100 days to get a wheelchair repaired in the state of Connecticut. And if you have a job, if you need to go somewhere, if you need to get groceries or do anything, not having a wheelchair when you depend on it for your life is really not acceptable. And so we're finally making a real dent in that, and so grateful for the partnership of the Department of Social Services and the leadership of Governor Lamont, and making sure that Connecticut will now have some really robust protections going forward. I want to also say that this bill wouldn't have happened if it weren't for real collaboration from the industry, from advocates, and particularly from our friends across the aisle. And so I want to kick it over to my ranking member on the Human Services Committee, Senator Seminara, who worked very closely on this issue and made it one of her key priorities in the last legislative session.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am so happy to say we are first in the nation to have wheelchair legislation. And we made it happen. All of you made it happen. I was truly honored to be a part of this landmark legislation, and as ranking senator on Human Services and a longtime advocate for the disabled, I was honored to serve on the task force. We met frequently, very frequently, for nearly a year, and had incredible, passionate, and positive discussions. We worked through our challenges. We reached compromise. We learned from each other, and we listened to each other. And ultimately, we accomplished our goal to decrease the amount of time it takes to repair a wheelchair in Connecticut. Connecticut is now the first state in the nation to regulate wheelchair repairs, reducing existing long wait times. It is unacceptable for someone who depends on a wheelchair assistance to not have the means to get around, and their lives for extended period of times. With this new law, we are going to reduce frustrating long wait times for wheelchair repairs. We are going to ensure that this population has the needs that they have, their needs are met and addressed. Our bipartisan work on this issue and our dedication to protecting the rights of people with disabilities will, of course, continue. But this is such a positive and essential step forward. I pledge to continue to be a leader in this area. I am also proud to co-sponsor House Bill 5200 to expand the access of medical diagnostic equipment and examination rooms for persons with disabilities. The bottom line is today is a celebration for the people in the disabled community. Connecticut is leading the way forward. Today is also a great day for bipartisanship, and it is such a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you for having me, and let's continue our work together.
Next up, we will hear from our wonderful partner and the leader on all sorts of issues, including the rights of people with disabilities, the Commissioner of Social Services, Andrea Barton-Reeves.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm happy to be here to witness Connecticut lead the way as the governor signs Senate Bill 308. DSS strongly values the importance of making sure that Medicaid members receive timely and high-quality complex rehabilitation technology for wheelchairs and repairs. We already cover repairs under Medicaid, but we're continuing to engage with our stakeholders to make sure that this not only remains that way, but is more enhanced and more inclusive of the opinions of the people that we serve. As we know, wheelchairs are not just a means of transportation. They are vital, life-enhancing devices that provide independence and mobility. Wheelchairs are essential for daily living, allowing people to live and work and go to school and participate and be full and active members of their communities, as all of us deserve. Timely repairs of wheelchair is not just a convenience, it is a human right and it's dignity that we all deserve. This bill is about equality and it is about dignity. This bill will require companies to make sure that repairs are completed within 10 days, but even 10 days can feel too long. So we will continue to advocate to make sure that wheelchair repairs are done timely and that they're done accurately and that they're done completely so you can return and continue to live the quality of life that everyone deserves. We are eagerly awaiting the impact of these changes and the changes they will have for our Medicaid community. And we are thrilled to be here today to celebrate this change, not only our bill, but in the way that all of us should be living in the state of Connecticut. Thank you.
So there are three essential parts of the wheelchair bill. One is just easing paperwork that insurance companies or the Medicaid program were creating to make it harder for people to get their wheelchairs replaced or fixed in a timely manner. Two, we're making sure that there is a hotline for people to call if they're not able to get their wheelchair accessed in a fast time, so we're able to get that data and inform decision makers, and we can strengthen the law if we need to. And three is just that requirement that wheelchair repair companies repair those wheelchairs within 10 days, which is, again, it's what we could reach, but it will hopefully make a huge difference given the long, lengthy repair times we've heard. Next, we're going to hear from Gary Gross, who's the chair of the Citizens Coalition for Equal Access.
Hello, thank you for having me. Great day, weather-wise. It's a great day for the disability movement. And now I'm going to have my friend, Ruth Roman, reading what I wrote.
Thank you, Gary. For years, the Citizens Coalition for Equal Access has been working on ensuring better medical treatment for people with disabilities across the state of Connecticut, specifically by addressing the lack of accessible medical diagnostic services for people like me, Gary wrote this, who use wheelchairs. We want to thank the legislature and Governor Lamont for helping us to finally do this. HB 5200 will allow many disabled people for the first time to use accessible exam tables and weight scales when they go for a medical appointment. We will be able to get on the exam table and the doctor will be able to perform a complete physical. For a good portion of my life, I have been examined by different doctors in my wheelchair and was always given the impression that this was more than adequate to identify any health issues. I am hoping that our advocacy will go a long way to righting this misconception on the part of doctors and patients alike. With HB 5200, people with disabilities will also soon be able to get on weight scales in their wheelchairs. It is so important to a person's health to know how much you weigh. Finally, 5200 will require large medical facilities with at least 3 exam rooms to have at least 1 exam room that is large enough for a wheelchair to enter and maneuver easily. In the past, the rooms have been so small that it has been a real challenge. I want to thank Ruth Groby, thank you Gary, who worked tirelessly on this issue for the past 5 years. I also want to thank someone who is not here in Connecticut anymore, Dr. Sandra Carpenter, who validated our advocates' concerns and gave us expert information about the issue. Finally, I want to thank the legislators who particularly saw HB 5200 to the finish line. State Representative Mike D'Amico and the co-chairs and ranking members of the Public Health Committee. We disability advocates are celebrating with gratitude today, and we thank all legislators and the governor for making this important improvement possible. But we also realize that a great deal more needs to be done in order to achieve equitable health care for the more than 613,000 adults with disabilities in our state. As a couple of examples, we note the need to ensure mechanical lifts to help individuals use the new accessible diagnostic equipment and implement better training procedures for the medical personnel using those lifts. Finally, more broadly, we need to address the unfairness facing people with disabilities in terms of financial eligibility for Connecticut's Medicaid program. We very much hope that all the people I have thanked today will join us in this endeavor.
So we're lucky to have in Connecticut lots of fierce disability rights advocates who have been leading on this movement and on so many other causes. And on the Wheelchair Task Force, we were really lucky to have some incredible advocates sharing their voices, their lived experiences, and helping us understand why this was so absolutely critically important. I want to particularly thank one advocate who we're going to hear from next, Jonathan Sigworth, who's just been a tremendous leader and the former chair of the Connecticut Wheelchair Reform Coalition. Jonathan?
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Sigworth, and I am a husband, a wheelchair user for more than 18 years, CEO and president of the nonprofit More Than Walking, and the former chair of the Connecticut Wheelchair Reform Coalition, which has been fighting for timely wheelchair repairs for the last year and a half. I want to thank all my fellow advocates who have offered up their time and talents to make today possible. I also want to thank Senator Lesser, Senator Seminara, Representative Gilchrist, Representative Case, for working tirelessly to produce SB 308, a bill that has passed with unanimous and bipartisan support in the House and Senate, and Representative Smith and Representative D'Amico for all your support through this bill's development, and Governor Lamont for making this bill, now Public Act 24-58, established law, which protects our access to timely wheelchair repairs for the first time in the United States. Today, we are here to celebrate that as of July 1st, wheelchair dealers will have 10 business days to complete our repairs after all insurance and shipping processes are complete. We will now have a real choice to have timely repairs done in the safety of our homes instead of being pressured to travel across the state with broken equipment into shops for faster service. Responses for repair times, either by phone or email, must be done within 1 business day, greatly improving access, especially for those of us who are nonverbal. The Office of the Healthcare Advocate will have a system on their website and a phone number for filing and tracking complaints when these timelines are not met. Wheelchair repair prior authorization will not be required unless the prescription is more than 5 years old on July 1st for Medicaid and January 1st, 2025 for for private marketplace insurance. When put into practice, these provisions can reduce average repair wait times from 2 months to 2 weeks. That means that we can more easily get back to work, not be confined to our beds, and stay out of hospitals and nursing homes from bed sores and other complications that can arise due to repair delays. But, and I invite you to say it with me, we're not done. We're not done. I personally will be working with my nonprofit, More Than Walking, and other partners to push Connecticut's success out to other states to address this nationwide problem, while also supporting and participating in the Connecticut Wheelchair Reform Coalition, now led by my colleague Farrah Garland, as they help monitor SB 308's implementation out in the community. Wheelchair users are pushing up against powerful interest groups where we have little agency outside of legislative processes and protections. And so, we're not done. We're not done. We look forward to working with our bipartisan allies and Governor Lamont to continue making Connecticut healthcare truly equitable for people with disabilities. Beyond strengthening and building off the 2 laws signed today, this means, for example, 1, funding and administrative support for more than 1 peer-run respite center so that psychiatric hospitalization is not the only option during a mental health crisis. And 2, preserving Connecticut's efficient and public management of Medicaid and improving its eligibility requirements so that people with disabilities can choose both to have the services like 24-hour caregiving that we may need to survive, and also to work, get married, save for our family's future, for emergencies, and for retirement without being ultimately forced into poverty. This is any of our lives at stake. And so, we're not done. There we go. Looking around this hall, isn't this what democracy is supposed to look like? Yeah. Isn't this what democracy, how it's supposed to function? Yeah. We aren't here just representing the 5,000 wheelchair users in Connecticut. We are representing all of Connecticut and all of its great diversity. The broader disabled community, our families, our coworkers and neighbors. When we listen to and fight for the needs of the disabled community, we are truly fighting for each other, fighting for our value as human beings, no matter how we were born, what we can do, who we love, or where we come from. And so, one last time, we're not done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. We had some real allies in the House of Representatives, and want to make sure that we recognize them. Representative Jillian Gilchrist, who was my co-chair, was a huge advocate of this bill. Representative Frank Smith, who served on the task force. I also want to hand it over now to the ranking member, the House ranking member of the committee, Representative Jay Case.
Thank you, Senator. And I agree. We're not done. So we're not done with this. This concept, this bill came to us a few years ago, not just this past session. We couldn't get it across any finish lines, and then we got Beverly involved, and things started moving. Guys, I studied human services in college. I don't know why I'm in politics, but it's because of you, the advocates, working together with us. That's how legislation works on a bipartisan basis. We don't know unless we understand and hear the issues from you. This bill is so important. My uncle grew up with polio his whole life, in a chair his whole life. He was executive at IBM. I get it. My brother was disabled his whole life. I grew up as his conservator. I took care of it. I took care of everything he needed, whether it was mobility, or going to the doctor and finding out how we were going to get him looked at. So this is very personal, not only to me, but to others within this building. We had so many meetings on this. We met with the advocates. We met with all consumers and the businesses. So we actually did site visits ourselves as legislators to find out what those sites are like that you'd go to. Yes, there were some wait lists. There are a lot of wait lists in Connecticut, mostly in the disability population. We're hoping that this eradicates a wait list rather quickly, because this one is pretty simple to do. When I go out and speak to people around the state, the one thing I say, we can build buildings, we can do other things, but if there's 5,000 wheelchair users in the state of Connecticut and they don't have mobility, who are we as legislators? You need your mobility. You need to be able to have your chairs fixed, your ways to get around, so you can be productive people within our state. There's nothing more that I care about than working for the people. And I think we have somebody here, we have the governor here, who is going to make sure that once we go on with this, because we're not done, I think that's going to be a catchy thing, okay? That we get some teeth and we get some dollars to put behind this. We're talking about having a 1-800 number and a website. Guys, we need your input. We don't have the proper data for us to go back and make sure that this is happening. If we don't know, we can't act. This legislation makes that happen so that we can bring stuff back to our agencies, back to our commissioners, and back to our colleagues and say, this isn't working. But let's find out, because now we have the statistics and how we can make it work. And one last thing, and with Senator Lesser here and everybody, when we have bills like this and we work together, things pass unanimously. I tell you, I've worked on 5001 bill for disabilities in 2013, passed unanimously within 3 minutes on the House floor. This bill did the same thing. When we work together for the people, we can get stuff done. There's no question about it. Let's just keep moving forward, because I'm not done.
Thank you, Representative Case. We're not done with the speaking order either, but we're close. We got two more that we got to hear from. Representative Mike D'Amico was really behind both of these bills. He was the one who first nudged us on the wheelchair task force a couple of years ago, and has been really an instrumental partner for those of us in the Human Services Committee. Representative Mike D'Amico.
Thank you, Senator Lesser, and thank you to the governor and all the distinguished dignitaries who are here. The first bill that I will introduce next year is a bill to get us a better sound system here in the Hall of Flags. So stay tuned for that. This is really one of the proudest days of my legislative career, to stand here and to celebrate with all of you about these two bills. They represent significant progress towards breaking down barriers for people with disabilities, and it's been a long time coming. And I don't have to tell you, you face barriers every day. You face barriers with regards to mobility, your daily chores in life, transportation, communication, employment, housing. Well, these two bills can't solve all of those problems, but these two bills that we're celebrating today can solve the problems having to do with health care and having to do with basic mobility. What I have found in my career is that if you make legislators aware of the problem, and if you show a willingness to try to fix the problem, you will get support from all of your colleagues, as Representative Case just mentioned a few minutes ago. It took some hard work, it took a lot of negotiating, it took some cajoling, it took some compromising, but we ended up with two really good bills that are now about to be signed into law by our good governor. So I want to focus on just one of those bills that I had a pretty substantial hand in, and that's Public Act 24-113, having to do with accessible medical diagnostic equipment. As was explained by my friend Gary Gross a few minutes ago, this is going to significantly affect and significantly positively affect people's visits to the doctor's office and to hospitals. So starting next year, healthcare facilities and practice locations have to train their staff about procedures having to do with disabilities. They have to take an inventory of their equipment, and they have to document what steps they're going to take to comply with the requirements of the new legislation. And then the following year, 2026, when practice locations and healthcare facilities go to purchase or lease or replace their existing equipment, they have to replace it with equipment that meets the standards that we have set forth in this bill, in this legislation. I want to thank, first and foremost, the governor for signing these two bills. It wouldn't happen without him. Thank you. I want to thank the two leaders of the Public Health Committee with whom I worked diligently, Senator Saud Anwar and Representative Kristen McCarthy-Vahey. Neither could be here today, but they were instrumental. They told me 2 years ago, we are going to get this done, and they kept their word. We got it done with their help. I want to thank the ranking members on public health, Senator Heather Summers and Representative Nicole Claridis-Detria, and also Senator Jeff Gordon, who was very helpful in getting this particular bill, the bill having to do with medical diagnostic equipment, across the finish line. I want to thank the Citizens Coalition for Equal Access, of which Gary is a member and of which Ruth is the secretary. I want to thank the Connecticut Cross Disability Lifespan Alliance, Disability Rights Connecticut, and the State Independent Living Council. And if I left out any groups, my fault and my mistake, I apologize. But those groups are instrumental. So I just want to close by following up on what Representative Case had to say and what Jonathan Sigworth had to say. We are not done. But since I'm a former history teacher, I will give you a quote from Winston Churchill, one of my heroes. This is not the end, nor is it the beginning of the end. Rather, this is the end of the beginning. We will be back next year, and we will make further progress on these issues with your help, and I thank you very much.
Last but certainly not least is a man who needs no introduction, because we wouldn't be here if the governor didn't want to sign these bills and implement them and make sure that we're going to have these incredibly strong nation-leading protections for people with disabilities. Please welcome the governor of the state of Connecticut, Ned Lamont.
Well, thanks, Matt. And, great, I get to follow a little Winston Churchill just to get you inspired. But it is for real that Jonathan and Gary and each and every one of you, your voices were heard. We listened. We're acting. And we're acting because of the people standing behind me in terms of making life a little bit better for each and every one of you. And as I think forward, I think about the fact that you don't have equal opportunity unless you have equal access. And it's just shameful to me, and I found out about it by listening to you and talking to these folks, that 100 days to get your wheelchair fixed, 100 days is shocking. And what that means in terms of your lack of opportunity, what that means in terms of jobs, being able to get access to medical, groceries, all the things that you need. So that's why we're acting on this today, and I thank each and every one. And I'm struck by what opportunity means. When Andrea Barton Reeves was over at Hark, one of the most memorable days I was there was all the folks were getting their paycheck for the work they were doing in the community and what that meant in terms of dignity and pride and self-worth. And I'm very pleased that we are just getting started. And one of the things we're initiating, thanks to, we just received a $17.4 million grant from the Federal Department of Labor. They only gave it to 4 states. We are one of those 4 states. And what we're going to really do is focus on those 6,000 to 7,000 young people graduating from high school here in Connecticut every year with a disability, a special need, making sure that we know who they are, making sure employers know who they are, making sure we can put them together with the jobs that are out there to make sure that everybody gets the very best opportunity. And the world is getting more and more opportunity, I think, for each and every one of you. First it was IT, being able to work from home. Now it's artificial intelligence with screen readers and voice recognition. I want each and every one of you to be able to live your life to the absolute fullest potential. And this wheelchair bill is just one small way of saying, God bless you. Thank God you're here in the state of Connecticut, and we love you every day. Back to you, Matt.
All right, now the moment we've been waiting for, we're going to do the bill signing, but before we do that, we got to get this podium out of the way, and we're going to welcome up many of the people with wheelchairs, as many as we can get up here. Not as many. We're going to welcome up everyone in a wheelchair who would like to come up.
Everyone.